Thanks everybody for letting me know where you're watching from, and let's get the party started. We have had 1,000 registrations for this webinar. This is just amazing, and we are so happy that you're all here. We have some other cool webinars planned for this year that we will announce in the next week, so make sure to follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter to get notified about the upcoming webinars. Since there's so many people in here, there might also be a couple which have never heard of Write before, so a couple quick words about us. Write has been the first industry strength cloud-based crawler. At least that's how we started out 9 years ago. Now Write is the #1 platform for website quality management. A lot of people would say we are an SEO tool, which is definitely an area we are really strong at, but we have always aimed higher, focusing on optimizing for the user and not for search engine. It is all about website user experience. So the Write suite, loved by more than 1 million digital marketers and agencies worldwide, unifies the 5 aspects that are key to website user experience: search engine optimization, quality assurance, performance, accessibility, and compliance. And I'm very proud that some of the world's most renowned companies like Daimler, Allianz, and Disney trust in the Write technology to reach their website's full potential. I personally have been in the SEO industry since early 1998, starting with Alta Vista and Fireball over here in Germany, until Google started in Germany, which was back in 2000. So I basically grew up with them and their algorithms, and I've been in love with SEO ever since. But this webinar is not about me, it's about Mike King. And when it comes to the full extent of technical SEO disciplines, I really look up to Mike. He is a great combination of a highly talented developer and a very creative marketer. He has lots of experience and a very sharp SEO mindset. But first and foremost, he is Zora's and Glory's dad. And since he's also a very talented rapper and musician, and you're definitely going to see this in his presentation, I thought I have to do a special kind of introduction. I whipped up some rhymes. Yeah, I hope this is not going to be so embarrassing. I actually pitched it to my wife last night, and I strongly thought she's going to sweet talk me out of it, but she actually said, let's do it. And so, yeah, let's go for it. Again, I hope it's not going to be too embarrassing. Here we go. Hi, I'm Marcus, and I love SEO. There's a lot to learn today, so let's go. hreflang, canonicals galore. If you think you know it all, there will always be more to learn and to comprehend all the stuff that you don't yet understand. You have lots of experience, or you're just super bright. You know you shouldn't just do it, but rather do it right. 301, 302, whatever redirect you do, you need to know your shit, or your work is for the loo. So you all, if you optimize for Google or for Bing, live from NYC, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Michael King.
That was incredible. That should be the new theme song for 302. What's your thing that you do? I forget.
302 of a kind with Izzy. Fridays at 4 p.m. Thank you very much for the plug. Yeah, I was actually. It would be nice with an audience, you know. Michael. Yeah, but yeah, not a lot of people in my basement. No, whatever. Mike, it's so great that you're here. So great. Thanks for making this together with us. Real quick agenda of today, Mike will do a presentation for you on how to hit the SEO charts with an iterative content strategy, and then we have time for all your questions. You can send all your questions via the questions module. Just shoot them right in, nothing will go unnoticed, and make sure to stay until the end. Mike and I will also discuss the trends for 2022, and I'll offer you something for the busy peak season around Black Friday and Christmas this year. But before we start, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself. What was your way into SEO, and specifically, what role does hip hop play in your life?
Yeah, I think the answer to both of those are the same, right? Because I was making music for a living before I got into SEO, and I actually got into a bike accident, and I didn't have health insurance, so I needed to get a job to pay my medical bills. And the first place to hire me was an SEO agency because of my developer background. So for me, you know, hip hop was my life pretty much prior to that. And then just like you, I just discovered SEO, fell in love with it, found out I was good at it, and just kept it moving. And then ultimately, you know, I got involved in thought leadership in this space, started my own agency and everything. And, you know, it was always very similar to my experience as a rapper. Like I used to tour all over Europe, I played all over the States and so on. And it's actually very similar to, speaking at conferences. So those loves overlap because they definitely hit me in the same way. And it's really awesome that I'm able to combine those worlds now.
Yeah, awesome. And as you just said, you have a very great agency built in New York City, and you just released an album, an EP, Iconic. And this is exactly what it's all about. And it's really an exciting story how you basically take what you've learned in online marketing and SEO and basically transferred it to the music industry. And you did a lot of like very smart stuff. So I can't really wait for your presentation. I would think that without much further ado, let's get the party started. If you have like immediate questions, again, use the questions module. If it's like really something which should be discussed right away, I will jump in, ask Mike right away. And if not, we're just going to do it at the end. And I'm just going to shut up because you're much smarter than I am anyway. So
that's not true.
Enjoy, people.
Cool. All right, so let's jump right into it. So, before we go deep into any of this, what I'm going to be talking about a lot today is content strategy. So we actually have a new guide that we just put out, and I would recommend that y'all check this out because it's going to be a good addition to everything that I talk about today. So just bit.ly/IPR-CS. And while I'm plugging things, you can also download my record. So bestmc.co/iconic, they'll take you right to Bandcamp where you can check out the record. And if QR codes are your thing, feel free to use that too. Me personally, I hate them. But we're going to talk a little bit about, why this is actually still here. So you may have heard that I make rap music. And for me, my story is very much one of two brands. And so what I mean by that is like when I made rap music full time, for a living, I went by the name Icon the Mic King. And, that's also a bit of a subject of, concern for me right now because of the fact that SSL error on the QR code, that's funny. Bit of a concern for me now because I feel like I've kind of outgrown that name. And we're going to talk a bit more about that. But then there's also iPullRank, which is another brand, which is my, of course, digital marketing, thought leadership brand, and so on. And the reason why I split those was because once I got serious about SEO, I didn't think I was going to be taken seriously using my rap brand in this world. And so, I remember when I started at Razorfish, where I was working at the time, it's an international agency. And I was like, I need a name to be able to communicate because all these people around me are using Twitter, or they have, at this time it was like AIM, and we all needed to have like, different names that represented us. And I was like, okay, well, what's a good double entendre for SEO? And I was like, iPullRank. And so as you can see from the numbers in those profiles, one brand is much bigger than the other at this point. I knew a bit about marketing coming into SEO just from the things I was doing for what I was doing in music, but I wouldn't say that I was incredibly effective at it. I was more effective at getting on the road, building my name that way, not necessarily being so metrics driven around things like followers. And the thing about music is it's largely about brand awareness. It's not so much about, the metrics of like, oh, how many visitors are you getting to your site and things like that. So I was just doing things to make it so people knew about me rather than like focusing on growing followers. But now, because the internet is like the primary way that people consume music, you've got to get those numbers up, and otherwise you're not going to be considered a real rapper. So, and another reason why I split those is because I would run into issues with the fact that people knew that I was a rapper. When I first got into SEO, I wouldn't tell anybody. It wouldn't be until like I had a job for like 6 to 12 months and I'd be like, oh yeah, I got a show. Why don't you come through? And they're like, show? What do you do? And I remember I was working for an agency here in New York, and I was running the whole SEO and content teams. And I was sitting with the president one day, and we had this client from a hotel brand, like one of the big hotel brands. And she was like, oh, you hired that rapper? I don't want to work with him. And so despite the fact that I ran that whole team, I was never able to interact with this client. So I didn't want to, showcase these biases to like cut off opportunities for me. But I think that at this point, because I'm at a point where people know what I do, they recognize what I bring to the table, it's not something that's cutting off as many opportunities as it might have in the past. And in fact, we work with record labels now at my agency. We've worked with, you know, a lot of the websites that are in the hip hop space because of the fact that people know this about me. And ultimately, I'm the type of person who has a lot of things that they can do. And so, you know, right now we've got the agency going on. I own a e-commerce site in the hip hop space. I also have this record that we're talking about. I'm working on this book called The Science of SEO. And so I have this vision of my brand being something much bigger than the couple things that people may have known me for. And so I kind of liken it to the vision that Walt Disney had. And I'm not trying to go all Kanye on you and tell you I'm Walt Disney, but I think that their vision was a very good one in that they were like, okay, from this core set of things that we do, what can we turn that into? Let's start a music label. Let's do things on TV. Let's put out books and comic books and so on. And as we all know, Disney has continued to evolve. They bought Marvel. That's a whole nother train that they've got on the tracks and so on. And so what I'm trying to do is lay that foundation so I can be effective at doing all these other things. And so as I looked for analogs to that in the space, the easiest one to look at is Jay-Z. You know, he's someone who came out as a rapper, was very successful, and also turned that into being very successful at business. I kind of did it in the reverse, in that I came out and got a little successful at business and then went back to rap, and, you know, I'm turning that into a bigger thing. But at the same time, again, there's a lot of analogs because he's got a variety of different business interests that he has. And, you know, it's actually interesting. He's a owner of a advertising firm called Translation, which is also based here in the city. But nevertheless, you know, he was never like, oh, I have my rap persona and I have my business persona. It's always been one thing. And so what I'm trying to do at this point is leverage this one brand to, you know, accomplish all these different things that I'm talking about. Now, the brand, as far as how we're going to position that brand, is very much, you know, work in progress. But at this point, I still wanted to continue to roll out with this record that I'm putting out. And so I had to evolve what I had to match where I'm at right now. And so Icon the Mic King, my logo looked like this. And what I did is I was like, okay, I reached out to some of our outsourced partners that do design work, and I just sent them the sketch and I sent them the original logo. And I was like, I need something that represents me a bit better now. And so, you know, I just turned 40. It's difficult for me to go out and tell people, like some people, especially in the marketing world, they're like, oh, do you have music on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever? And I'm hesitant to tell them my name because it's like, I'm 40 years old. I can't have this like superhero rap name, but my actual name is basically a rap name. So I shortened it to Mike King, and I actually reached out to a former employee of iPullRank, and he put together this logo for us, and ultimately, you know, it was something I was really happy with. And so, again, I just turned 40, and I set up a series of goals for me going into this year. And my business coach was like, hey, you got to actually make time for this if you truly want to do it. And so I took off a few weeks where I just went to the studio, knocked everything out, and I put out this record called Iconic. It's an EP. And bringing this back to SEO, like squarely, the title of this record is SEO driven. What do I mean by that? For people that are still searching for Icon the Mic King, because I do still have a fan base, the record being named Iconic by Mike King will also rank for searches related to Icon the Mic King. So, you know, that's me putting what I know from SEO directly into play right away. Now, a key thing to know about me when it comes to promotion, you might think I'm a pretty self-promotional person if you see me on stage or you see me write blog posts and things of that nature. But where I struggle is once I've completed something, I put it out in the world, I don't want to keep promoting it once it's done. And so as I was thinking through this iterative content strategy that I was looking to build, I needed to figure out how can I keep myself engaged in this so that I can continue to promote this record effectively. So when I put together my core content strategy around this, I put together, you know, a series of things that whatever we put together must adhere to. So one, we're going to iterate through everything. Two, Mike King / Mike King. It's one brand. It's not going to continue to be separate. I'm going to have one space where I'm pushing things out on my different channels. Our primary goal is going to be audience growth. So it's not sales, it's not any sort of like conversion beyond getting people on our list, getting people to follow me in these various channels. And then we're also going to have content that's going to showcase me as the best rapper ever. We're going to talk more about what that means, because obviously that's a bit of a grandiose statement. And we're going to test all the execution that we do on whatever channels that are available to us. So, I think we, as marketers, we tend to say like, hey, here's a new shiny object, Instagram, TikTok, Clubhouse, whatever. I want to test those to see how they actually work for me, because if they don't meet the goals, there's no reason for me to be active in those channels. And again, another core goal here is that this content needs to act as a natural mechanism for how we continue to promote the record. So one of the difficulties that you have as an artist when you create something is like, okay, I'm done with this. I put it out, let it do what it does. Let me move on to the next thing. Instead, what I'm doing here is I'm creating a way where every time I add a piece of content to this, it is effectively continuing to promote the record, and I'm having the ability to continue to be creative, but it's still serving the purpose of getting this record out there. So we're talking about iterative content strategy. What does that have to do with rap music? Well, here's the thing. The music industry is basically streaming now. It's not about, pressing up vinyl and CDs so much and trying to get them into the stores and so on. And so you have the ability to do the same exact things that you do with software, in that you can have these iterative approaches to how you release music. So historically, it's been very much like a waterfall delivery in that, someone makes a record, they then hand it into the record label then starts to move it into manufacturing and aligning for distribution deals, and at the same time lining up the PR activation, and all this stuff needs to be done 3 to 6 months in advance. So you didn't have the ability to be agile before, and so there were these deadlines that were in place that would stop it from you being able to get like certain people on your record because of their schedules and things of that nature. And what I believe is that we have the ability to be completely agile with music. And so we're actually starting to see instances of this. And this tweet is pretty famous around when Kanye West released this record called The Life of Pablo. And he announced, he's like, I'm gonna fix wolves. Like, this song, he didn't feel it was good enough. And so ultimately what he was doing was just making adjustments to the records, even though they were already available to the people, the audience that he's trying to reach. So ultimately he revised 12 of those songs after they were released. And I think this is the new model that more and more artists should jump on, so they can use feedback from their audience and continue to create records that, one, people feel more engaged with, and two, just make better records. And I think that we're seeing a big shift between how people ultimately consume music, how much time they spend on it, how much of a chance they give records. And so this is really setting us up for a new frontier in music. And it doesn't hurt that the biggest rapper in the world also just did the same thing with his latest record, Certified Lover Boy. He made some changes to a series of the different songs. But Kanye has continued to do this. So with his latest record, he was doing these big listening parties in stadiums where he's playing the whole record as it stands, and then he's getting a lot of feedback through the press, through social media, and so on, and then he continued to adjust the record. Just a couple weeks ago, he removed a series of different artists that were guest appearances on the record because he didn't feel like it was resonating the way that he wanted it to. And again, I think this is the future of music, and this is what I definitely wanted to add to my approach here. And so just to level set, so we're all in an understanding of what agile methodology is. I'm sure we are, but just in case, it's really that series of identifying requirements and developing hypotheses, planning how to get the work done, getting the work done, and then reviewing and monitoring, and then iterating and improving from there. Effectively, what we're all already doing in marketing anyway, just applying it to another domain. So as I worked through this record, I just had a series of hypotheses and just was able to just test things as I went. So my first hypothesis is that based on this model that people are starting to see more and more of, my core fans don't care how I put my record out. They don't care if it's perfectly polished. They don't care if all the featured artists are on there. They just want the record. So for me, I hadn't released a record in 12 years. So, my fans are like, geez, Icon, where you been at? And so I put together this record and I launched it, and I launched it the same way that you might launch a piece of software. And that I had a blog post talking about the introduction to it, what it is, where you can find it, and I also explained what my approach was going to be. And so just like a piece of software, we have release notes for the record. And as we continue to iterate on the record, you'll continue to get release notes so you can see how the record has changed through each iteration. So, ultimately I put it on Bandcamp because that's just the fastest way to get things up. I could certainly have put it through DistroKid or any of these other services that then move it directly to the DSPs, the titles, the Apple Musics, and so on. But what I wanted to do is get it up for the people that are my fan base and get their feedback right away. Now, here's the thing. I launched this record at 11:59 on August 28th because my birthday is August 29th, and I wanted it to be out right before I turned 40. And you may notice that there's a series of mistakes in the blog posts and so on because this was me launching this at my 40th birthday party. So my apologies. But again, people were really happy to see it and excited to see what I'm doing now. Now, the website that I've launched here is called bestrapperever.com. It's ultimately going to evolve into more than just being about me. My goal with this website is for it to be a big data science project where we quantify what the best rapper is or who the best rapper is. And so collecting a variety of different data points, whether that's streaming numbers, looking at lyrics and breaking those down using NLP and so on. I want to be like 538 meets complex.com. And so we have a whole taxonomy for where the site is going to go, but what you're seeing in red is what we're ultimately launching with. Having a whole section about me, building a forum so we can get that feedback and so on, and then also building out that blog in what I call the rap science section, where we really dig into what it takes to be a great rapper. So what were the results? Well, of course, as I mentioned before, I'm really good at creating an initial pop of activity when I launch something, but then things kind of peter out. And so we had a great couple days at first, and it's remarkable, like the amount that I was able to sell from the record in those 2 days. It used to take me like 2 months of selling CDs in the streets to do that. So it was just like some good initial success that I want to continue to build on based on the continued launching of content. But one of the other things that I noticed as part of this is that the perceived value of music has changed. And so typically when I would sell a CD, it'd be $10 or €10, depending where I am, of course. But some people are paying $1 for it because I made it a pay what you want type of thing. And someone paid $301. That person making an SEO joke, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And so the average price for the CD was $19.47. So back in the day, people used to buy CDs for about $20. But I don't think that we have enough volume to truly know what the best price is to set here. But what I'm noticing based on the people that have bought it that I do know, it's more of a function of like where you sit in the world and what you think the value is for the record. So I think I'm going to continue to use the pay what you want model just to see what we can get, because ultimately I just want the music out there. It's far less about how much you spent on it. So the result from that iteration or that initial iteration is that people are just happy to hear what I'm doing and they want to see how I evolved. And so next hypothesis is my marketing audience won't care about my music. And that was a big concern going into this because most people that follow me at iPullRank, they want to hear about SEO tips or content strategy tips or machine learning hacks or whatever. But the reality of it is it's actually quite the opposite. So some of my most engaged tweets in August and September were about either the tour or about music itself. And in fact, the engagement in most cases was much higher than my marketing tweets. And so just wanted to like test a couple things, see what would work best. Obviously, it's the visual content. This is a video that I launched the day before the record dropped, just to like kind of tease people about it, that it was coming. And it was the highest engaged piece of content that I got for that month. So the result, I'm just going to keep putting music in front of my marketing audience, especially in a visual way, so that we can continue to get that engagement. Now, from there, I was also lucky to be able to take the show on the road. So I haven't toured in a long time. I think the last tour I did might have been in 2013 when I was playing in Europe, and I did like a half marketing, half music tour. And I had a blast, and it was really cool because at some places, like there's a event called Marketing Festival in the Czech Republic, where I actually already had a pretty big fan base from playing like big festivals out there back in the early 2000s. But they also had an after party from the event, and they were happy to let me perform at the event. So it was cool that I could be doing marketing speaking in the morning and then doing rap shows at night. But anyway, I have a couple friends that have continued to do awesome things in music. I would definitely recommend you check them out. My friend Chesky, my friend Andre Osborne from Dark Time Sunshine. They did a tour in September, and I was like, cool, can I come on the tour? And they were like, yeah, of course. And it was a small investment. I ultimately was the one that provided the tour vehicle, which is fine. Like I spend way more on marketing efforts than I spent on that tour vehicle. And it also acted as a mechanism to make sure I would get the record done on time, because I didn't want to go on tour and only have records from like 15 years ago. And so I played a bunch of shows on the East Coast and was able to just get more like testing and learning. And what I wanted to do there was try some new things. So I've done a variety of different touring configurations where I've had a DJ, where I've not had a DJ, and I wanted to present myself in a different audio visual way. And so what better way to do it than have some slides? And just kind of like combining what I do in my marketing world with what I'm doing in my rap world. And we call it the Mike King experience. So my hypothesis was that having slides would allow me to really just drive my show and set me apart visually, give me more control of what I'm trying to do, and also create opportunities to drive people into my marketing funnel. One of the key things that I've learned is that it's better when it's a place that has its own projector and there's a big screen behind me, because otherwise I have this small screen like you saw there that's kind of off to the side, and people don't pay as much attention to me on the stage. So it's better if I do that, but at the same time, the action that the people in the audience actually take is still limited. Excuse me. Another hypothesis that I had was that if I create animated experiences with the actual lyrics on the screen, that people would be able to follow along even if they didn't know the song. So they'd be able to just like, do the chants in the background for the choruses. So things like this. And this is like the hook as it's going. You guys don't hear anything, but the music is playing right now as well. Well, the result of that was no one, not a single time, did they sing along to the chorus that was on the screen. So that was, a thing that I'm probably not going to do much more of because it just didn't really work. Another hypothesis was that if I tell people that I'll send them a pro quality video, they're not going to have their phones up the whole time during the show and not really engage. And so the idea was like, hey, I'll give you this video. We film it from the back so you get the whole show, and it's like HD quality and so on, 4K, whatever. And that would help me build my MQLs and so on. And so we had slides like this in here where I'm saying like, hey, enjoy the show any way that you want. I'll send you this video, just sign up here. And they went to a landing page like this. And, ultimately, no one did anything. Really, it hurt my ability to get people to collect more content and, share it in social media. So it did create people that were more engaged and didn't have their phones up, but it didn't create a series of assets that they would ultimately end up sharing themselves. My other hypothesis was that, okay, well, I'm not getting as much engagement as I expected. So if I put more calls to action throughout the deck, that's going to yield more people actually doing things. And so that's when I started adding these QR codes. But that was ultimately inconclusive because, you know, in some cases, the QR code wasn't up long enough. In some cases, some slides were missing QR codes. So I don't know if that ultimately worked the way that I wanted to, but it's definitely something I want to test some more. Next hypothesis was, I was hoping that because it's been so long since I'd been on stage, that I could get away from this routine that I would do called the blindfold freestyle. And so what I used to do is I would blindfold myself and people would give me objects and I would freestyle and guess what they are. And it's something that always stands out for me, but it's not something I love doing because of the fact that people, you know, tend to gravitate more towards that rather than the music that I actually spend a lot of time and put a lot of effort into. But what I ultimately realized by not doing it in some cases is that, you know, it is a unique selling proposition for me, and I should continue to use it strategically in places where people have not heard of me before, and so they can have something that it's very memorable that they can take away. So it's just good marketing to keep doing it. Next hypothesis was people hate carrying merchandise around at shows. So I figured if I didn't bring merch at all and I just promoted the website itself, people would just buy from there. And so, you know, the reality of it was if I would have brought merch, it wouldn't have fit because, you know, my tour mates also had a ton of merch. And this is me doing my Tetris thing to get everything in there. But the reality of it is that people are more engaged by what they see in real life. And, you know, it's far easier for them to make that impulse buy when they see something like this. They saw someone just perform. And so I definitely won't do that moving forward. I'm definitely going to, you know, leave that as an option for anyone who does want to do that. But I'm going to have more things so people can, you know, capitalize, or we can capitalize on their impulse buying. But there are definitely going to be supporters that will buy before the show. So continue to push that prior to the launch. My next hypothesis was that if we ran billboards in the areas that we were touring, that would increase the brand awareness and ultimately get more people to check out the record and drive more people to shows. So out-of-home ads, huge opportunity because they're far cheaper than you think. Like you can get an ad in Times Square here in New York for, you know, a few grand a day, if that. But the problem was we ultimately ended up missing the cutoff for deployment. So now I know I need to at least be 4 weeks out. So this one's inconclusive, but it's definitely something that we're going to try. Other thing, my hypothesis was that no one would come to shows because of COVID. That's actually not true. There's a lot of people that came out, and it brought out a very interesting cross section of people. A lot of music people, a lot of marketing people, a lot of tech people as well. So, you know, it's really about the relationships that I'm building and continuing to grow that brand awareness. So my whole conclusion from that side of things, and someone asked, how do we bring this back to the B2B marketing thing? Please allow me the latitude of completion. I'll get there. So my conclusion here is that I'm going to spend the next 2 years just really building up the brand awareness through quarterly releases and then continue marketing PR, and then I'm going to go back on the road again. Now, how do I apply this to the actual rollout of the record? So another part of the iterative process here is that I released the record without any guest appearances because it was done. I did my thing. It sounded great. I didn't want to delay it while I tried to get other people on the record. But that's actually been very difficult to navigate because I'm looking for like very high caliber, you know, amazing, legendary rappers to be on my record. And so it's taking a long time. But just this past weekend, I got a rapper by the name of Little Fame from a group called MOP to come to the studio and lay his part. And if you're not familiar with this group, you know, you may be familiar with this scene from this Anna Kendrick film. So the verse that she's rapping there is a verse from Little Fame, who's a legendary rapper. So super excited to have him on there. And ultimately, you know, every time that I update the record creates a new opportunity to create another pop where people will check out the record. So from there, I'm just gonna really ramp up my efforts around the actual advertising stuff. So I'm really gonna focus on the Boston to DC corridor so that I can achieve a critical mass of what I'm trying to do or who I'm trying to reach. Because if I just spread it across America or internationally, my budget is not going to go far enough to make any sort of a dent. So from Boston all the way down to DC, and all places where, you know, I can play shows pretty easily to ultimately reinforce these. There's going to be videos for every song, because if you don't have a video for a song in these times, you might as well not have even made the song. It's like it didn't happen. And another tactic that I'm going to leverage is getting ad creative using Cameo. So hiring rappers that I love and their fan base would also like me, get them to do videos to say like, hey, check out Mike King, he's awesome, blah, 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 and then target their fans within whatever channel that we're focused on, whether that's Facebook or Instagram, so that we can get that brand awareness up, get more people to check it out. I'm going to continue to do a variety of appearances, whether that's like radio shows and so on and so forth. And of course, I'm going to do my Times Square ad and get my picture in front of it, because you know these ads, like, they stay up for a minute per hour or whatever. And then once we've built up the audience of people that are actually purchasing the record, we're going to do lookalike audiences in Facebook, across Instagram, and so on. And then we'll also leverage RLSAs so that we can basically get broader search traffic for cheap. So, you know, if someone searches for, if someone is in my cookie pool and they're searching for, you know, hip hop or something like that, we can drive clicks from that and spend, you know, very little money on it. And shout out to Marty Weintraub for that idea. I'm going to continue to do more and more content activation. So the producer of the record, this gentleman named Trox, we did a live about the record. We walked through and broke down every single record. And then we're also just going to capture more and more content and do remixes of everything. So when we did the show in Brooklyn, we did a whole like short documentary, which we're ultimately going to chop up in a variety of ways. And then also I'm partnering with a group called Elixir Media Group to support the PR coverage. And I'm building what I'm calling my minimum viable content team. So when we get to discussing how you can replicate this from a B2B perspective, we're going to talk a bit about that. Like, how do you build your minimum viable content team so you can execute quickly on some of these types of engagements? And so ultimately for me, I need a copywriter, PR specialist, social media manager, developer, designer / animator, and videographer, so I can continue to execute quickly on this type of content. So we may ultimately end up partnering with Lyric Vids because they do, you know, such a good job at pumping this type of stuff out quite quickly. So what did we learn and how do we apply it to business? Which is what the key question was asking. Well, growth is like anything else. Like, you got to take this agile approach to be effective here, right? So what is your core objective? Obviously, you want to get your content out there to generate leads, you know, get sales or what have you. So that core objective needs to sit at the central point of whatever you're doing. And so you got to ultimately come up with a series of hypotheses, prioritize those hypotheses, test them, see what works, and continue to refine from there. And so the key thing I want to highlight here is that the sustained growth, especially through content, isn't about doing one thing, putting it out, and walking away. Like I was saying, that, you know, my key struggle has been historically. It's largely about identifying those step functions and continuing to do small things until that ultimately gives you that hockey stick effect that you're looking for. So at the end of the day, what you want to do is generate effective hypotheses. And that's where a lot of the data that we leverage in SEO, in social media, and so on comes into play. So if you're measuring effectively, you're going to be able to say, okay, here's a pocket of opportunity. And I'm going to show you one key pocket of opportunity on how you can execute that in a couple of slides. But the main thing is that you want to always be hypothesizing. So, you know, companies that we work with in this way, the more small executions that we do, the more effective that they are. When we do something where it's like, hey, here's the one thing that you should do, because they're like, I just want to do a big infographic or interactive, they're always disappointed. But if you're thinking through like, how do we continually come up with these small ideas and then pour more gas on the fire when you get one that works, that's going to be the way to do it, right? And so it's always going to be a function of how many tests you do. And so the more of these hypotheses you generate, the more value you're going to get out of it. And a key thing that you need to keep in mind, you may already be doing this, but your user behavior, the actual things that they do, is far more important than what you get from user testing. It's far more important than what you get from your, your surveys about what they think. What they're actually doing needs to be your true North Star. So you've got to have your measurement really aligned in such a way where you're able to see what those pockets of opportunity are. So here's a quick one that you can replicate in a variety of ways, in a variety of different contexts, whether that's B2B or B2C, right? So hypothesis here is you can take over a ranking core thread and then use that as a quick opportunity to drive referral traffic back to your content. So the way you do this is you just go straight to SEMrush, and you put in Quora.com. You look for keywords that are going to be relevant to whatever your goals are. So in this case, I put in Quora.com and I look for rapper. And then, I kind of narrow it down to best rapper. So in this case, the keyword best rapper right now drives 3,600 in volume or whatever, and it ranks number 10. So that's a page that I can go to because these are pretty light responses that they have here, and I can add content to this and then get the upvote. So I'm the first result in the list and make sure I'm linking back to my content. So I mentioned that we have this content strategy guide that you can download. We're going to ultimately end up doing stuff like that in Quora, and then it's a rinse and repeat type of thing where you can be stealing traffic from Quora and driving it directly to you. Now, ultimately, if you want to be continually effective, you need to think through like, how do you build this content machine? And to build a content machine, you need content strategy. And so content strategy isn't content marketing. Content strategy is when you're building the systems, the workflows, the governance models, figuring out who owns what. And I think the workflows and the governance models are the biggest difference between how people do content marketing versus how they do content strategy, and laying out who does what when, and then building that flywheel so you can continue to have this series of hypotheses and just kind of pour it into a process and kind of do the same things that I'm talking about with my music career in your B2B marketing context. So I've talked about this idea of like minimum viable content teams, but effectively, it's from this idea of a minimum viable product, which is what I put out with this record. I didn't have all of my features, but again, it was great as it stands. People love it, and I can continue to make adjustments to it. But the same is true of a minimum viable content team, right? So if you're in the enterprise, you're going to need all these people. You need writers, editors, project managers, content strategists, so on and so forth. If you're in the mid-market, you probably can't afford all those people, but you may have a team that looks more like this, less of that process layer with project management and so on, but you still got, marketing coordinators, content strategists, developers, designers, and so on. But if you're a team like ours, and when I say ours, I mean specifically, my music team, it's not going to be as many people. You may be able to get away with a content strategist that is also a writer and so on, but you're going to need a developer and designer so you're able to execute on all these things. And so then once you've got your minimum viable team, you've also got to figure out, how you can align with your goals, your formats, and your volume. So if you can only afford 3 people, you're not going to be able to put out 100 pieces of content a year. And perhaps you can afford those 3 people, and maybe there's outsource partners that you can leverage and so on, but you need to have that dialed in based on what your team actually looks like. And so from there, you need to think through like, how do you build effective content briefs? Because you need to get everyone across the that's a really long message. You need to get everybody on the same page about what it is that you're actually looking to do. And so the brief is the best mechanism to do so. And so we built something that we call the ultimate content brief, and we can send this out to everyone via email. That's not a problem. But we want to basically put in all the details of what we're trying to accomplish. So what is the content asset that we're looking to create? Which target of your audience are you looking to reach? Which stage of the buyer journey does it go into? What are the core business objectives? And so on and so forth, so that everyone is on the same page about what it is that they're creating. And then you also want to lay out the right content models, because you've got different page types that are going to be across whatever content experience that you're creating. And so you're going to want to make sure that everyone's on the same page about what the elements of that content must be. So putting those in action, when we do what we call content recommendations, wherein we're making adjustments to existing content, we basically have these laid out in words, so it's very easy for us to know where things need to go. And so it's very easy for us to then iterate on things based on, the feedback for where the client or customer needs to put things, rather than just like giving them the whole piece of content on a page. Like for instance, you build a mock-up or something to that effect. If they don't know where things go, they're not going to be able to execute on it effectively. And so you also need to be thinking about structural content models. And there's a great post from Kane Jamison over at Content Harmony where he talks about the different approaches. But largely in what you're looking to do, you're likely going to be using the hub and spoke model for most of what you're doing. And so that directly aligns with what we just discussed with respect to, having a hypothesis around a piece of content that you might want to inject into a core thread, and then have directed back to something very specific on your site. So you may have, like we're doing, this big content strategy guide, and then we have a series of pages that we then align directly with things that we're going to create within core. So ultimately, what you want to do is build a content strategy around what's going to work for your business objectives. Now, real quick, just because content pruning is something that comes up a lot and is something that's very valuable to do, I recommend that you do a quarterly content audit and effectively just build out a scoring model so you can determine where there's opportunity versus where there are things that you might just want to update. So everyone gets really scared when they're talking about, okay, do we want to remove content? Well, we've really just kind of dived into a way to be effective around this by leveraging this idea that Moz introduced back in 2014. They have this concept called the one metric, where they roll up a lot of their metrics into this composite score to determine and compare all their content to say, okay, these are the things that are performing well, looking at social shares, traffic, conversions, and so on. And so what we've ultimately done is we've developed this content performance score, just based on a series of metrics, whether that's like the page title performance or length and so on, your link scores, your mobile page speed, and things like that. And then we roll it up just in a simple logarithmic equation so we can get that value to determine, relatively speaking, how are these pages performing? And so we incorporate that into our content audit so that we can then say, okay, comparing this against what we call our content potential score, which is another score that we build based on search volume, keyword difficulty, and average position. So then we can say, okay, if it's within a certain threshold of content performance, but not in a certain threshold of content potential, then we might want to delete that content. And so ultimately, I'm just recommending that you take the same sort of concept and build your own score based on those business rules so that you can automate how you're determining, what you might want to prune and what you want to make improvements to so you can get more value out of it. So just to wrap it up, the key thing that I'm saying here is that you want to identify data-driven hypotheses, align it with your content strategy, execute on whatever that thing is, measure it, see how well it's going, and then figure out if it's something you want to continue to do or if it's something that you just want to stop doing. So keep shipping, keep measuring, keep iterating, and keep building those small wins so that we can go up and to the right. And yeah, there's only one Mike King. That's all I got.
Woohoo! Thanks so much. I think a lot of people are applauding. I don't know if you can hear it till New York City. But thank you so much. This is really, really awesome. Really great stuff. Yeah, awesome from Sean. Awesome stuff. Yeah, I think only Melissa didn't really like it. I also read the lengthy comment here, but I really liked it. There was so much good stuff in there. Before we dive into some questions, really, there's so much good stuff. By the way, regarding the content pruning, what I also like, and I saw this in your little table here, not just taking the average time on site in the content article, but also seeing how many words do I have? What's the average reading time for this piece of content? And then comparing the average time on site with that average reading time that you would expect if somebody reads the whole content. You can really see the gaps where people are really just, you know, like very short, maybe just searching for a specific information, and where they're really like consuming the whole content. So this is definitely a great tip you gave there regarding content pruning. I also love the Quora tip. I also love to give this advice to people which sell products, or they have something very visual, to also do the same technique actually with Pinterest, because Pinterest also seems to rank really, really well with, and also with lots of subdomains. Yeah, deduplication for the win here, thanks Google. And also this works incredibly well, basically taking over an already existing Pinterest ranking with your own board and your own stuff. So this is also a very, very good tip here. And I was really amazed that when you have like the lyrics on the screen behind you, that people wouldn't sing along. I was like, that's so great. I would sing along, right? So, because I can't understand it, right? Especially rap is very hard to understand if you're not a native English speaker. And I love that. Why do you think is that people don't want to sing along?
I don't know. I think because there isn't like a explicit call to action. Because when I do it in real time, and I'm like, when I say this, you say that, everyone does it. But when they just see it on the screen, I don't tell them. You know, I think that has to do with it.
Okay. And I also love the idea of actually giving away a professionally filmed video of the show, because this is actually what I really don't understand. I went to a big concert, obviously, like 2 years ago before Corona started, and it's really amazing, like from 20 years ago to now, how everybody is holding up a phone. And for me, I never do this. I really, you know, I want to soak it in, but sometimes I really have the, oh damn, you know, should have really recorded this. But I think most of the times people are not even watching this, right?
Right.
So, and I would have thought that's such a smart idea, because you actually give the people the opportunity. Hey, you can tuck away the phone, just enjoy the show. So why do you think people didn't use this opportunity? Why do they want to record in themselves?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so that the behavior that happened was people did put their phones away, but they didn't give me their email address so I can send them the video. So I think they were like, okay, yeah, let me just be here and enjoy it, but it just doesn't give me the opportunity for people to have their own little videos, their snaps and whatever that they put on their Instagram, and they're like, yo, check out this guy. So that's why I stopped doing it. But I think maybe in the future, as the crowd gets bigger, it'll be the type of thing where it's like, hey, you bought a ticket, give us your email address so you can get this, and then we don't have to think about it in real time. It's just something I can say. And you know, the people that are going to record on their phone or whatever, they're going to do that no matter what. But I definitely discouraged the behavior that I wanted when I first started doing it. So I stopped doing it as we got later in the tour.
Awesome, but great, you're trying all of this stuff out. So last question from me, how much is the ad on Times Square? I want to know.
It's not that expensive. Yeah, it depends on the size. So the one that I showed you, that one's pretty expensive, but there are smaller ones that you can get for like $4,000 a day or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, because now I really cut my teeth here in rapping, you know. I'm like, really, hey, I also need this Times Square thing going up, you know.
Nice.
Well, whatever. Just read a couple of comments here. People are really excited about what you just presented. So awesome. Holy fuck, what a prezzo. Could I say this? Yeah, I'm sorry, I just said it. So thanks, Casey. She really loved it. Martin, great crossing over from music case to general content business. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Martin, for the comment. That was great. Would appreciate a PDF copy of the slide. Thanks. I think you can get a copy. You can also get this content brief you were talking about, because somebody was also saying he would definitely like that. Yeah, the brief was used today is not as detailed, so Sean definitely wants to have your brief here as well. Roman says, excellent speech and presentation. Thanks for splitting it.
Splitting, that means you rap.
Oh, and he also has a question. How do you eliminate the unrelated traffic from some keywords that rank in the top 3? What are your methods when it comes to it?
Eliminate the unrelated traffic from keywords. I don't understand that question.
I also, what keyword, where's unrelated traffic? Roman, feel free to specify. Christian Schmidt, I'm a singer of a hardcore band, go Christian. And I made the experiment and told the audience the words to sing along to chorus, and it worked. Maybe you should try this, but the audience were mainly friends. Haha, yeah, not all friends, I guess, yeah. Nice. Where can I get a right shirt? Benjamin is asking. I don't know. I gotta refer this to marketing because we actually don't have the new Merc with the new logo, but I think it will be available soon. So give us an email address and we'll definitely send you something, Benjamin. We got you covered. Don't worry. Great content, Mike from Tania. Matt, props to you, Mike. Thank you so much from Corinna. And Mort is asking, can you create an article about you creating content score based on metrics? Can you create an article about you creating content score based on metrics?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can also get this from him if you just stir up his email, and he will always send it to you. And also saying, would you please send the slides and maybe a recording of the webinar to watch? Don't worry, you will get this per email. You will get an email in the end and with the recording of the presentation. And obviously, you can also have the PDF from Mike. No worries. Thanks, Mike. Love from Beirut, Joanna. Matt, greetings to Beirut. Thanks for sharing from Victor. Oh, and Roman has specified. Think that the website gets unrelated traffic for the keyword that shouldn't rank. How would you eliminate this traffic so that the website will not get irrelevant traffic? I think that's more like a Google problem than your problem.
Yeah, I don't know how you would solve that.
I don't know. Maybe Roman, you get in contact directly with Mike. Johannes Vaupel, servus Johannes. Hi Mike, if you look for a copywriter, just type copywriter contact. Thank you. Okay, this was like he wants to engage Google searches here. And Victor's looking forward to the replay. Yeah, thanks for the webinar, really interesting from ours. But there were a couple of more questions in here. One more thing which came in really quickly, which was from Brooke. Brooke was asking, what's the most important thing to get right for marketplace SEO strategy? What do you think can tip a site ahead of its competitors? It's very detailed.
Marketplaces. I work on so many marketplaces, and it's things that I wouldn't normally recommend that work. So a lot of marketplace sites end up creating these pages that are just like duplicates of other pages, like different permutations of a list of products. It works so well. Like some of the biggest marketplaces on the web, if you look through them and see like where you land, they usually have a section of these pages, and it drives like 80% of their traffic. So I hate to say it, but more pages.
Nice. By the way, Hope, Buffalo Bills fan, Hope was saying, I think he was also responding Roman here, IPs from traffic. I'm sure you could exclude keywords too in analytics. I still don't get really the question Roman was asking.
Yeah, if we're talking about paid search, then yeah, do negatives and all of that. But if we're talking about organic, you can't necessarily, let's say someone searches for a given keyword and they're not necessarily having the right intent when they click on your result. There's nothing you can do about that aside from, try not to optimize for that keyword. But if it's a good keyword, you definitely want to rank for that. So I don't necessarily understand.
Yeah, and as I said, it sounds like a Google problem because there's irrelevant traffic. There's a different search intent people are having clicking through to your site. This is clearly Google not showing the correct result. I would always take the traffic. I mean, there's always some way to monetize traffic, so I would always take the traffic. Johannes asking, will there be a replay? Yeah, no worries. You will get the email. You can rewatch it. Johannes will probably want to watch my rap. Thank you, Johannes. Did we collapse the deck download? Did we collapse the deck download? I think that you can download it. I don't understand. Esther saying, great show. It was such a pleasure. It's such a pleasure for us, Esther, that you joined us here in the webinar. Hope is saying maybe change the content on the page that it's ranking for the unwanted keyword. That could actually be a strategy if it's the wrong intent, definitely. And Johannes saying, yeah, for sure. Yeah, does anybody else has questions? Shoot your questions. I know we are already well over time, but if you have some more questions, just shoot them in. Obviously, we have all the time in the world, especially you, because it's still very early in the morning for you. For us, it's a little bit later in the evening already. But obviously, we stay as long as you guys need us here. I think Bianca wanted to put in the last slides. Maybe Bianca, can you share the presentation again?
Yep, she's sharing.
Oh, it's only me not seeing this. Oh, I can't see it. Okay. I just see us both. I don't see the presentation. Yeah, if you have more questions, just shoot them over. Yeah, right now I can't see. I think we also want to do a poll, but since it's a little bit late in time, because we also want to do let's do like a really quick outlook into 2022, because I'm really eager to get your perspective on what's changing in 2022. So, but before I ask you, because I know you will have some very good answers here, I would like to ask the audience, what do you guys think will become more important in 2022? What do you think will be the trends that will shape the SEO industry in the next year? So, Bianca, are you running the poll? I can't see it. Do you see it, Mike?
Nope.
No, I don't know. I think she wanted to run the poll. If not, I'm just going to promote Sven's question here real quick. Is there a dual brand strategy, or do you have a meta brand? I think this is exactly what you said in the beginning, right? You are the meta brand. You are the business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you are the
yeah. There isn't going to be two brands anymore.
And Johannes is asking, what's your favorite way to detect entities?
Spacey. So Spacey is a natural language processing library, and it's effectively pre-trained, and they have a variety of different packages for different languages where you can do natural entity recognition. So I prefer to use that. There's a lot of people that also will use Google's NLP API, which has an endpoint for that, but that's not free. So I use Spacey.
Yeah, and the test tool is not there anymore. As I was always using this preview. That doesn't work anymore.
I got to do it on the command line, and it's like, why am I paying for this? I got something else I can use.
Yeah, absolutely. But great tip, because actually I hear this question quite a lot, because a lot of people were using this and now they can't use it anymore. So that's definitely a very good tip. By the way, Bianca just told me we don't have a poll, so you should just let us know in the question module what you think will be the most exciting trends that will shape SEO in 2022. So if you have something, let us know. Johannes is saying, okay, thank you for Spacey. I will seek the details. That's great, Johannes. Okay, so let me just ask you, because I said this the wrong way. I'm really sorry about this. So what do you, like, really quickly, what do you think will be the trends that will shape the SEO industry in the next year?
Honestly,
obviously,
I don't think we've seen any meaningful changes that have changed how we do things since like 2015. And what I mean by that, like, Panda and Penguin were big shifts that like rocked our industry, right? Like, you had to start making much better content. You've had to stop doing really bad link building and so on. But everything else has been pretty incremental, like core web vitals, incremental. The structured data improvements, incremental. So I don't see us, having a dramatic shift in the next year. Now, Google has said over the last year that like they're getting better with subtopics. They're just like, they have a much better language understanding. And I think there's some nuances in there that are gonna like change what we can do. So as an example, I think with you being able to take a really big piece of content and them being able to extract the subtopics better, you're not necessarily gonna have to make like a million long tail pages anymore. Maybe you just make one really, really good piece of content. So that may be a shift, but I don't think that's going to be a huge shift either. They announced that they're going to do the page experience update on desktop. So, like everything is mobile first at this point. So I don't know that we're going to see something huge in 2022. And no matter what I say, people are going to keep doing SEO the way they do SEO. So yeah.
And so Google's repeated statement that user experience is increasingly being taken into consideration for search engine rankings, the significance of user experience is rapidly increasing, obviously. How do you see this development? Because I think this is a very interesting development because we get away from 300 different ranking factors to whatever the user likes, whatever it needs,
Yeah, but
what the user loves.
what does that change about what you do? You know what I mean? Like ultimately you should have been building sites with good user experience to begin with. And so maybe that gives SEOs that weren't thinking about that more to focus on. But like I'm sure you've been doing that for forever. I've been doing that for forever. You've been like having conversations where the conversation is much bigger than SEO as people think of it. And it is thinking about like, okay, we got to make these adjustments for UX that also support SEO. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think there's huge shifts coming. I think that if anything, people have to do more of what they should have already been doing.
Yeah, that's a great point. I also see it this way, that a lot of people think about core web vitals and all this stuff, all the UX improvements as SEO measures, and should we really do this? Does it have an effect on my SEO? I mean, I don't care about SEO in that place, because you make more out what you already have. This is like title tag optimization. I mean, like obviously, if more people click on your result, it might eventually bubble up on top. But you're ranking in the top 10, more people clicking through to your site. That's exactly what you want, right? So, I think this is always like, what are you saying, right? This has nothing to do with SEO. This is a great opportunity to just make more out what you already have. So it's definitely a great point. And from what you said, what has changed, I think, especially in the last years, I mean, like I've always been hardcore SEO, but I think a little bit of a mindset change is really now that I always say, I think the most important thing is really having the desire, and really you want to have like really the best result possible. It's not about just ranking anymore. I just want to rank for that keyword, right? But really, I want to be the best freaking result for that query, and I will look at all the different results, everybody that's ranking, what does everybody do well, and then I will do like oh, he has a great snackable content, this guy has great own pictures because everybody else is using like the normal pictures, he has additional video content, and then I will just like build the best page for me out of everything I learned with the steps, because that already reflects what users like. So, and I think it has become like, for me, I mean, like I'm still doing the same, but I'm more into that mindset. I won't, if I don't do it this way, it's not worth the time. If you really want to do it, you do it right, and you really want to do the best freaking result. And I think this is like really the most interesting shift for me in regards to this whole user experience topic. We have, by the way, because I was asking, Benjamin was saying optimize for voice. I mean, like obviously, voice is really becoming more and more dominant. Although I really got to say, how do you optimize for voice, right? I mean, like whatever the input type is, right? If it's per keyboard or somebody speaking it or dancing it, whatever, right? I mean, like it's still that question, it's still that keyword. So I think it's very hard to optimize something for voice. I mean, like obviously schema, speakable, and that kind of stuff, but still hard.
I think visual search is interesting, but I don't know that we as SEOs have enough control to like make So, all right, when you're thinking about the visuals on the website, again, it's kind of going back to the UX discussion. You're not the team that's deciding that when you're working with the client. They're like, cool, we've got these images. How do we optimize the images? Like, some of that is going to be making images that align with people are searching for, or images that are similar to other things. Because a lot of the visual search is like, I hold this thing up, cool, how do I match something that looks like this, right? And so we don't necessarily have the ability to game that in the way that we've gamed so many other things as SEO. But I do think it's a really interesting new level of technology. I think the whole MUM thing, like the multimodal search that they've been continuing to evolve into, again, really interesting, but we're having less and less control over how they process our inputs than we did before. So again, it's like, what do we do differently as a result of these trends? Not much.
Probably, yeah, absolutely. You're still doing the grind, yeah. By the way, Marian is also having a very interesting opinion here. He's saying possible trend for 2022, metaverse content optimization. Sounds weird, but it may be coming. This definitely sounds weird, and it's how do you optimize for the metaverse? I think this is really getting metaphysical right now. Like, do you have something? Do you have something up your sleeve for optimizing for the metaverse?
No, I don't. I mean, because we're still not clear on what it is. You know, like, is it going to be like Ready Player One? And then what are the rules of the environment? Like, we're talking about how do I mess with the matrix? Like, we don't know how it works yet. But I suspect, you know, just like anything else that Facebook builds, there's ad opportunities, and then once there's ad opportunities, there's ways to game that. Once we figure out like what does it take for the content to appear in there, there's gonna be optimization opportunities, but we don't know enough about what this thing is to really know what we can do. End of the day, it's gonna go back to content strategy. Like, what is it that we can create to put in there to engage people? But right now, we don't know we don't know what the rules are, so we can know how to play in the rules.
By the way, Martin is saying, as Mike stated and did in his iterations, it's still a more and more ongoing back to the user thing, gain for and listen to feedback and take that insight into the different channels, aka answering Quora, make a new song update, whatever. Absolutely. And I think Roman is now giving you a challenge, because he says, would Mike be a king on search results when we look in 2022 for the best rapper on Google results?
So I used to rank #1 for best rapper ever back in, like, I don't know, early in my SEO career. But that traffic was terrible because everybody was looking for Lil Wayne. So the bounce rate on it was horrible. But yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. I have an exact match domain for that.
Best rapper ever. That's really cool. So yeah, wow, we're way beyond time. So yeah, I can't thank you enough. This is really, really, really awesome. This is really great stuff. As I really enjoyed a lot, lots of great tips here. And yeah, I can only wish you the best for the EP and everything. And just, if I understood this correctly, you also go into the DSPs now, right? Also, we will be able to hear this on Spotify, on Apple.
In a couple of weeks, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Obviously. Oh, by the way, Connie, just wanted to say thank you so very much for the time. It was really motivating and entertaining, especially since I'm a newbie to SEO. That's great, Connie. And yeah, welcome to SEO. This is you've chosen the right profession. This is definitely a great industry to dive into, and actually also a great community, as you can see. So yeah, great choice to get into SEO. Alexander saying was great. I got to leave. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Marcus. This was the right use of my time. It's always the right use of your time, Alexander. Thank you so much, guys, for Maria. Absolutely. So I think the last thing, Bianca, I can't see the slide. I hope you put it on. Is about our bonus in the end. So I mean, like, obviously Black Friday is coming up, Christmas is coming up. If you want an audit, you know, hit us up for a free detailed audit. And the interesting ones I will do myself. You know, as you know, 90% of my time I'm actually doing these kinds of audits for our customers. So obviously I'm gonna also pick a couple of those to do myself. I love my job. So yeah, let's keep them rolling in. If you want to be sure that you are all set up perfectly for Black Friday and Christmas, let us know. We're more than happy to help you guys. Marianne is saying, thank you both. Really good presentation and great insights. Absolutely, I can only say the same thing. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening, for not tuning off after I did my introductory rap. I really appreciate it. No worries, no more raps at the other webinars. And thank you so much, Mike, for your time in the morning to do this together with us. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. Thank you both from Johannes. Thanks, Mike and Marcus. Cool. Yeah, thank you so much for all the great comments here. You've really been a great audience, that's for sure. And I hope to see you at some of the other webinars. And if you have something, get in touch with Mike directly or me. We're both on LinkedIn. We have emails, whatever. You will find us. If not, we've done a really bad job as SEOs. If you can't find us, right? So we didn't deserve you get your email. I think you can find us. So thank you so much. Everybody have a great day if you're on that side of the world, and a great evening if you're on our side of the world. Thank you very much. Don't just do it right. Bye-bye.